The champagne glass slipped from my hand as Emma stood in the middle of her crowded living room, her voice cutting through the party chatter like a knife. I'm in love with Scott Williams. The room fell silent. 20 pairs of eyes turned to stare at me, including those of my best friend Kenneth, Emma's husband of 8 years. My heart hammered against my ribs as I watched my entire world collapse in real time. This was supposed to be a simple birthday party. Instead, it became the moment that changed everything. But let me back up and tell you how I got here, standing frozen in a room full of strangers, while the woman I had fallen for just destroyed both our lives with four simple words. Before we see how this ends, tell us where you are watching from and hype this video in the comments. Trust me, you are going to want to see where this goes. 6 months earlier, I was living the most ordinary life imaginable. Scott Williams, 29 years old, working as a freelance graphic designer from my cramped one-bedroom apartment in downtown Portland. My days blended together in a haze of coffee shop visits, client deadlines, and Netflix binges. I had been single for 2 years after my ex-girlfriend, Carol Martinez, decided she needed someone with more ambition. Her words, not mine. Apparently, being content with a modest income and a simple life made me undateable. Kenneth Gonzalez had been my best friend since college. We met in a computer science class where I was struggling with coding, and he was already building websites for local businesses. He had this natural charisma that drew people in, the kind of guy who could walk into any room and instantly become the center of attention. After graduation, he landed a job at a tech startup that eventually made him wealthy enough to buy a house in the hills overlooking the city. I had met his wife, Emma Smith, exactly 3 times in the 8 years they had been married. She was always polite but distant, the kind of person who smiled without it reaching her eyes. Kenneth described her as driven, ambitious, someone who matched his energy for success. She worked as a marketing executive for a major firm downtown, the type of woman who wore power suits and carried herself like she owned every room she entered. The first time I really noticed Emma was at Kenneth's 32nd birthday party last spring. I arrived late, as usual, carrying a bottle of wine I had grabbed from the corner store. The house was packed with Kenneth's work friends, people I did not know who spoke in acronyms about projects and profit margins. I was looking for a quiet corner to hide in when I spotted her on the back patio, standing alone by the railing. She had changed out of whatever business attire she had worn to work and was wearing a simple blue dress that made her look younger, more approachable. Her dark hair was down instead of pulled back in her usual professional style. She was 34 then, 5 years older than me, but standing there in the soft evening light, she looked beautiful in a way that caught me off guard. I walked over with my beer, not really having a plan beyond escaping the crowd inside. "Hey," I said, joining her at the railing. "Great view up here." She turned to look at me, and for a moment I saw something different in her expression. Not the polite mask she usually wore, but something more genuine. "It really is," she replied. "Sometimes I forget how beautiful the city looks from up here." We stood in comfortable silence for a few minutes, watching the lights twinkle below us. "You are Scott, right?" she said eventually. "Kenneth's friend from college." I nodded, surprised she remembered my name. We had barely spoken during our previous encounters. "I am Emma. I know who you are," I said, then immediately felt stupid for how that sounded. "I mean, Kenneth talks about you all the time." She smiled, and this time it did reach her eyes. "All good things, I hope." "Mostly," I said, grinning. "He did mention you have terrible taste in movies." She laughed, a real laugh that transformed her entire face. "He told you about my romantic comedy obsession." Guilty as charged. That conversation lasted maybe 10 minutes before Kenneth appeared, sliding his arm around Emma's waist and pulling her back toward the party. But something had shifted. For the first time, I had seen past the executive persona to the person underneath. There was a warmth there, a sense of humor, a loneliness that mirrored my own. Over the next few months, I found myself thinking about that conversation more than I should have. Kenneth would mention Emma in passing, usually complaints about her work schedule or how stressed she seemed lately. He traveled frequently for business, leaving her alone in that big house more often than not. I started to wonder what her life was really like behind the successful exterior. The second meaningful interaction happened 3 months later at a coffee shop downtown. I was meeting a client to review logo designs when I spotted Emma at a corner table, laptop open, looking frustrated as she typed furiously. She was dressed for work, but her usually perfect hair was slightly disheveled, and she kept rubbing her temples like she had a headache. I debated whether to approach her. We barely knew each other, and interrupting her work seemed presumptuous. But something about her posture, the way her shoulders were hunched with stress, made me want to help. I bought 2 coffees and walked over to her table. "Rough day?" I asked, setting one of the cups down in front of her. She looked up, startled, then recognized me and smiled tiredly. "Scott, hi. What are you doing here?" "Meeting a client," I said, gesturing toward the other side of the cafe. "Saw you over here looking like you could use some caffeine reinforcement." She picked up the coffee gratefully. "You have no idea. I have been trying to fix this presentation for 3 hours, and I think I am making it worse." I glanced at her screen, which showed a slide deck about market penetration strategies. "Mind if I take a look?" I asked. "Sometimes fresh eyes help." She hesitated, then turned the laptop toward me. The content was solid, but the design was cluttered and hard to follow. I spent the next 20 minutes helping her reorganize the slides, simplifying the layouts, and improving the visual flow. "You are a lifesaver," she said when we finished. "This presentation is for tomorrow morning," and I was starting to panic. "No problem," I replied. "Design is what I do." She looked at me with genuine curiosity. "Kenneth mentioned you do graphic design, but I never really understood what that meant." I explained my work, how I help small businesses create their visual identity, design websites, build brand recognition. She listened intently, asking thoughtful questions that showed she was really paying attention. When my client arrived, I had to cut our conversation short, but Emma caught my arm as I stood to leave. "Thank you," she said. "Really, this was exactly what I needed. Anytime," I replied, meaning it more than I probably should have. That night, Kenneth called to invite me to a barbecue the following weekend. "Emma mentioned you helped her with some work thing," he said casually. "She was pretty impressed. Said you really know your stuff." I felt a flutter of pride at the compliment, followed immediately by guilt. There was nothing wrong with helping a friend's wife with work, but the way my pulse quickened when Kenneth mentioned her name suggested my feelings were more complicated than they should be. The barbecue was a smaller gathering, just a few couples from Kenneth's work and some neighbors. I arrived to find Emma in the kitchen, preparing side dishes while Kenneth manned the grill outside. She was wearing jeans and a casual top, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked relaxed, more like the person I had talked to on the patio months earlier. "Need any help?" I asked, leaning against the counter. She glanced up from chopping vegetables, her face lighting up when she saw me. "Actually, yes. Could you grab the serving bowls from that cabinet?" I reached into the cabinet above her head, acutely aware of how close we were standing. She smelled like vanilla and something floral, a scent that was distinctly her. "Thanks," she said softly when I handed her the bowls. We worked together preparing the food, falling into an easy rhythm that felt natural. She told me about her presentation, how it had gone better than expected thanks to my help. I found myself sharing more about my work than I usually did, describing recent projects and the challenges of freelancing. She listened with genuine interest, asking questions that showed she understood the creative process. Kenneth appeared in the doorway, beer in hand, surveying our domestic scene. "You two look like you have got this under control," he said. "Emma, did you tell Scott about your birthday party idea?" She shot him a look I could not quite interpret. "I was going to mention it later," she said. "It is not a big deal." "What kind of party?" I asked, curious about the tension I sensed between them. Emma wiped her hands on a dish towel, not meeting my eyes. "I am turning 35 next month," she said. "Kenneth thinks I should have a big celebration, invite everyone we know, but I was thinking something smaller, more intimate, just close friends." Kenneth laughed, but there was an edge to it. "Emma does not like being the center of attention," he said. "She would rather hide in the corner than celebrate her own birthday." "That is not true," Emma protested, a flush creeping up her neck. "I just prefer meaningful connections over big crowds." Kenneth shrugged and headed back outside, leaving an uncomfortable silence in his wake. I could see the hurt in Emma's eyes, the way Kenneth's dismissive comment had stung. "You should have whatever kind of party makes you happy," I said quietly. "It is your birthday." She looked at me with surprise, as if she had not expected anyone to take her side. Thank you, she said. That means more than you know. The rest of the evening passed pleasantly, but I found myself watching the dynamic between Emma and Kenneth more carefully. He was not cruel or obviously neglectful, but there was a casual dismissiveness in how he treated her opinions, a sense that he saw her preferences as quirks to be tolerated rather than respected. Emma, for her part, seemed to have learned to make herself smaller, to avoid conflict by going along with what Kenneth wanted. When I left that night, Emma walked me to my car while Kenneth said goodbye to the other guests. I had a really nice time tonight, she said, hugging her arms against the cool evening air. Me too, I replied. And Emma, about your birthday party. Whatever you decide, I hope you will invite me. She smiled, the first genuinely happy expression I had seen from her all evening. I would like that, she said. 2 weeks later, I received a text from Emma. Would you be free next Saturday afternoon? I am having a small birthday gathering and I would love for you to come. My heart jumped as I typed back my acceptance. She sent me the address, which I realized was not their house, but a community center downtown. Interesting choice for a party, but I trusted she had her reasons. I spent more time than I should have picking out what to wear, settling on dark jeans and a button-down shirt that Emma had complimented once. I stopped by a bookstore and found a beautiful coffee table book about graphic design through the decades, something I thought she might genuinely enjoy rather than a generic gift. The community center was in a converted warehouse space with exposed brick walls and large windows. When I walked in, I was surprised to find only about 15 people scattered around the room. Emma had decorated with simple white lights and fresh flowers, creating an intimate atmosphere that felt more like a dinner party than a typical birthday celebration. Emma spotted me immediately and came over, looking stunning in a flowing emerald dress that brought out her eyes. "Scott, you came," she said, giving me a hug that lasted a beat longer than casual friendship required. "Of course," I replied, handing her the wrapped book. "Happy birthday." She opened it carefully, her face lighting up when she saw what I had chosen. "This is perfect," she said. "How did you know I love design books?" "Lucky guess," I said, though I had remembered her interest from our coffee shop conversation. Kenneth appeared at her side, looking slightly annoyed. "There you are," he said to Emma. "The Hendersons are asking about dinner plans." Emma's expression tightened slightly. "I told you we are just doing appetizers and cake," she said. "This is not that kind of party." Kenneth sighed audibly. "Right, the intimate gathering thing." He turned to me with a forced smile. "Good to see you, Scott. Glad you could make it to Emma's auntie party." The comment was meant to be teasing, but I could see it hurt Emma. Kenneth wandered off to talk to his work friends, leaving Emma and me standing together. "Do not let him get to you," I said quietly. "This is exactly the right kind of party. Meaningful, personal, focused on the people who matter." She looked at me with gratitude. "That is what I was hoping for," she said. "I wanted to actually talk to people instead of just making small talk with acquaintances." We spent the next hour moving around the room together, Emma introducing me to her friends and colleagues. I was struck by how different she seemed in this environment, more confident and animated than I had ever seen her. She laughed easily, told stories, asked thoughtful questions about people's lives. This was the real Emma, I realized, the person she was when she felt safe and valued. As the evening progressed, I found myself gravitating toward her, drawn by her warmth and intelligence. We talked about everything from travel dreams to childhood memories, discovering unexpected connections and shared interests. She had grown up in a small town in Oregon, the daughter of teachers who valued education and creativity. She had wanted to be an artist once, before practical concerns led her toward business. "What kind of art?" I asked, genuinely curious. She blushed slightly. "Painting mostly, landscapes and portraits. I still have all my supplies in the spare room, but I never seem to find the time anymore." "You should make time," I said. "Life is too short to give up the things that feed your soul." She looked at me with an expression I could not quite read. "When did you become so wise?" she asked. "I am not wise," I replied. "I just know what it feels like to lose yourself in work and forget what makes you happy." Around 9 o'clock, Kenneth announced he had to leave early for a conference call with clients in Tokyo. Emma looked disappointed but not surprised. He kissed her cheek perfunctorily and told her not to stay out too late. After he left, the party seemed to relax, becoming more intimate and genuine. Emma moved closer to me as we continued talking. our knees almost touching as we sat on a small couch in the corner. The other guests gradually began to leave until it was just Emma, myself, and two of her close friends from work. We helped clean up, stacking chairs and collecting empty glasses. Emma's friends offered to finish the cleanup, sensing perhaps that Emma and I were not ready for the evening to end. Emma looked at me hopefully. "Would you like to get coffee?" she asked. "I know a place that stays open late." We walked to a small cafe a few blocks away, the kind of place with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls. Emma ordered decaf coffee and a slice of chocolate cake, insisting we share it to celebrate her birthday properly. As we sat across from each other in the dim lighting, the conversation turned more personal. "Thank you for tonight," she said, "for coming, for the book, for understanding what I wanted this party to be. Kenneth thinks I am antisocial, but I just value quality over quantity." "I get that," I replied. "Some of my best memories are quiet moments with people I care about, not big crowds or fancy events." She smiled. "Exactly. Tonight felt real, you know, like I could be myself instead of playing a role." I wanted to ask what she meant by playing a role, but something in her expression warned me not to push. Instead, I told her about my own struggles with authenticity, how I had learned to value genuine connections over superficial networking. She listened intently, occasionally reaching across the table to touch my hand for emphasis. The cafe began closing around us, the staff politely stacking chairs and wiping down tables. Emma and I reluctantly gathered our things and walked back toward the community center where our cars were parked. The night air was cool and crisp, and Emma shivered slightly in her dress. Without thinking, I shrugged out of my jacket and draped it around her shoulders. "Thank you," she said softly, pulling the jacket closer around herself. We reached her car first, a sleek silver sedan that suited her professional image. She turned to face me, my jacket still wrapped around her shoulders. "I do not want this night to end," she said quietly. "I know what you mean," I replied, my heart racing at the intimacy of the moment. We stood there for a long moment, the space between us charged with unspoken possibility. I could see the conflict in her eyes, the same war between desire and responsibility that was raging inside me. Finally, she stepped back, breaking the spell. "I should get home," she said, though her voice lacked conviction. "Of course," I replied, though every instinct told me to fight for more time. She started to take off my jacket, but I stopped her. "Keep it," I said. "You can give it back next time I see you." "Next time," she repeated, as if testing the words. "I would like that." She got into her car and rolled down the window. "Thank you again, Scott. Tonight was perfect." "It was," I agreed, meaning it completely. I watched her drive away, my jacket disappearing into the night along with her. Standing alone in the empty parking lot, I finally admitted to myself what I had been fighting for months. I was falling in love with my best friend's wife, and I had no idea what to do about it. The next few weeks passed in a haze of guilt and longing. Emma texted me the day after her party to thank me again, and we began exchanging messages regularly. Nothing inappropriate, just friendly conversation about work, books, random observations about life. But every notification from her made my pulse quicken, and I found myself checking my phone constantly. Kenneth seemed oblivious to the growing connection between Emma and me. He mentioned her occasionally, usually to complain about her mood or her work stress. "She's been weird lately," he told me during one of our regular coffee meetups. "Distant, you know, like she is thinking about something else all the time." I made non-committal sounds, fighting the urge to defend her or explain what might be on her mind. 3 weeks after her birthday, Emma texted me on a Friday afternoon. "Kenneth is out of town until Sunday. Would you like to come over for dinner? I can actually cook when I have time to focus." Every rational part of my brain screamed that this was a bad idea, but I found myself typing yes before I could stop myself. I arrived at their house at 7, carrying a bottle of wine and a growing sense of anticipation mixed with dread. Emma answered the door in jeans and a soft sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked more relaxed than I had seen her in months. "Come in," she said, smiling warmly. "I hope you like Italian food." The house smelled amazing, filled with the scents of garlic and herbs. Emma had transformed their usually formal dining room into something intimate, with candles and soft music playing in the background. She had prepared chicken parmesan with homemade pasta, a meal that must have taken hours to prepare. "This is incredible," I said, taking my first bite. "Where did you learn to cook like this?" "My grandmother," she replied. She was from Sicily and believed food was love made visible. I spent every summer with her until I was 16, learning her recipes and her stories. Her face glowed as she talked about those memories, more animated than I had ever seen her. We talked through dinner about family, childhood, dreams we had given up, and others we still held. Emma told me about her art, how she had planned to study fine arts before her parents convinced her to choose something more practical. I told her about my own creative struggles, the balance between artistic vision and commercial reality. After dinner, we moved to the living room with the rest of the wine. Emma curled up on one end of the couch, her feet tucked under her, while I sat on the other end facing her. The conversation flowed easily, punctuated by comfortable silences that felt intimate rather than awkward. "Can I ask you something?" Emma said eventually, her voice quiet. "Of course," I replied. "Are you happy?" she asked. "With your life, I mean." "Really happy." The question caught me off guard with its directness. I considered lying, giving her the easy answer, but something in her expression demanded honesty. "I am content," I said finally. "I have good friends, work I enjoy, enough money to pay my bills. But happy. I do not know if I remember what that feels like anymore." She nodded as if she understood completely. "I know exactly what you mean," she said. "I have everything I thought I wanted: successful career, beautiful house, financial security. But I feel like I am sleepwalking through my own life." The vulnerability in her voice broke something open inside me. Without thinking, I reached across the couch and took her hand. "You deserve to be happy, Emma," I said. "Really, genuinely happy. Not just content or comfortable, but alive and passionate and excited about your life." She looked down at our joined hands, her thumb tracing circles on my palm. "So do you," she said softly. We sat like that for a long moment, hands intertwined, both of us aware we were crossing a line, but unable to pull back. The air between us felt electric, charged with months of suppressed attraction and emotional connection. Emma was the first to break the silence. "This is dangerous," she said, though she made no move to let go of my hand. "I know," I replied. "We should probably stop." But neither of us moved. Instead, Emma shifted closer on the couch, closing the distance between us until our knees were touching. "I have been thinking about you," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "About that night at the cafe, about all our conversations. I know I should not, but I cannot stop." "I have been thinking about you too," I confessed. "More than I should, more than is right. But Emma, we cannot. You are married. You are my best friend's wife." She flinched as if I had slapped her. "You think I do not know that?" she said, pulling her hand away. "You think I have not been torturing myself about this for weeks?" I stood up abruptly, needing space to think clearly. "This is exactly why I should not be here," I said. "We are playing with fire and someone is going to get burned." Emma stood too, facing me across the coffee table. "Maybe I am already burned," she said, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "Maybe I have been burning for months, and I am tired of pretending everything is fine. Kenneth and I, we are not happy, Scott. We have not been happy for a long time." "That does not make this right," I said, though my resolve was weakening with every word she spoke. "I know," she replied, "but it does not make it wrong either. Not the way it feels, not the connection we have. I have never felt this understood by anyone, never felt this seen." I wanted to go to her, to close the distance between us and damn the consequences. But the image of Kenneth's face stopped me cold. "He trusts me," I said. "He is my best friend, and he trusts me." Emma's expression crumpled. "And what about what I need?" she asked. "What about what I want? Does that matter to anyone?" "Of course it matters," I said, my voice breaking. "It matters to me more than you know. No, but Emma, if we do this, if we cross this line, there is no going back. Everything changes. Everyone gets hurt." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "Maybe some things need to change," she said. "Maybe some hurt is worth it if it means finally being honest about what we feel." We stared at each other across the room, the weight of unspoken possibilities hanging between us. Finally, I grabbed my keys from the coffee table. "I have to go," I said, "before I do something we will both regret." Emma did not try to stop me, but I could feel her watching as I walked toward the door. "I will regret it more if you leave," she called after me. I stopped with my hand on the doorknob. every muscle in my body fighting the urge to turn around. I am sorry, Emma, I said without looking back. I am sorry for all of it. Then I left, driving home through empty streets with my heart pounding and my mind reeling. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the evening. The way Emma had looked at me, the pain in her voice when she talked about her marriage, the electricity I felt when she touched my hand. I knew I was falling deeper into something that could destroy multiple lives, but I could not seem to stop myself. The next morning brought a text from Emma. I am sorry about last night. I should not have put you in that position. Can we please pretend it never happened and go back to being friends? I stared at the message for a long time before typing back. Of course, we are good, but even as I sent it, I knew we were both lying. There was no going back to just friends, no pretending we had not crossed an emotional line that changed everything. For the next month, Emma and I maintained the pretense of normal friendship. We texted occasionally about safe topics, exchanged pleasantries when I saw her at Kenneth's gatherings, acted like nothing had changed, but the undercurrent was always there. The awareness of what we had almost done and what we still wanted to do. Kenneth, meanwhile, seemed increasingly frustrated with his marriage. Emma has been impossible lately, he complained during one of our weekly coffee meetings. She barely talks to me. She is always working late, and when she is home, she acts like I am bothering her just by existing. I made sympathetic noises while guilt ate away at my insides. Maybe you should try talking to her, I suggested carefully. Ask her what she needs, what would make her happy. Kenneth snorted. I have tried. She just says everything is fine and changes the subject. I think she is going through some kind of midlife crisis or something. The dismissive way he talked about Emma's feelings made my jaw clench, but I forced myself to stay neutral. Things came to a head in late November when Kenneth announced he had planned a surprise birthday party for Emma. Her actual birthday had been in September, but he wanted to do something bigger, more elaborate than her small gathering. I am inviting everyone, he said excitedly. Work friends, neighbors, college buddies, the whole crew. Emma is going to love it. I knew immediately that Emma would hate every minute of it, but Kenneth was so pleased with himself that I did not have the heart to discourage him. Besides, what right did I have to interfere in their marriage, especially given my own complicated feelings? The party was scheduled for a Saturday evening at their house. Kenneth had hired caterers, bought expensive decorations, even arranged for a DJ. When I arrived, the house was packed with people, music thumping through expensive speakers. I found Emma in the kitchen, wearing a forced smile and a black cocktail dress, playing hostess to a crowd of Kenneth's colleagues. She looked beautiful but miserable, going through the motions of enjoying her own party while her eyes remained flat and distant. When she spotted me, her face lit up with the first genuine expression I had seen all evening. Scott, she said, making her way over to me. Thank you for coming. How are you holding up? I asked quietly. She glanced around to make sure no one was listening. This is my worst nightmare, she admitted. I feel like a performer in my own life. Kenneth meant well, I said, though the words felt hollow. I know he did, she replied. That is what makes it worse. He planned this whole thing without asking what I wanted. Then acts hurt when I am not grateful enough. Before I could respond, Kenneth appeared with a group of his work friends, pulling Emma away to introduce her to people she had already met multiple times. I watched from across the room as she smiled and nodded, playing the role of the gracious wife while dying a little inside. The evening dragged on, growing louder and more chaotic as people drank and the music got turned up. Emma looked increasingly overwhelmed, retreating to quiet corners whenever possible. I found myself following her, offering silent support and understanding looks when the crowd became too much. Around 10 o'clock, Kenneth gathered everyone in the living room for toasts and cake. Emma stood beside him, accepting congratulations and well wishes with practiced grace. But I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her smile never quite reached her eyes. That is when everything went sideways. Kenneth had been drinking steadily all evening, and his toast became rambling and slightly inappropriate. He talked about how lucky he was to have such a beautiful wife, how successful they both were, how perfect their life looked from the outside. But there was an undercurrent of possession in his words, a sense that Emma was more trophy than partner. As Kenneth's toast continued, I watched Emma's composure begin to crack. Her smile became more strained, her posture more rigid. When he finished with a flourish about their perfect marriage, the crowd applauded, and someone handed Emma a microphone for her response. She stood there for a moment holding the microphone and looking out at the room full of people. I could see the war playing out on her face, the battle between social expectation and personal truth. When she finally spoke, her voice was clear and steady. "Thank you all for coming tonight," she began. "Kenneth put a lot of effort into planning this party, and I appreciate that." She paused, her eyes finding mine across the room. "But I have to be honest with you all. This is not really who I am. This big crowd, this elaborate celebration, it is not what makes me happy." Kenneth's smile faltered as he sensed the shift in her tone. Emma continued, her voice gaining strength. "I have spent so many years trying to be the person everyone expected me to be. The successful executive, the perfect wife, the woman who has it all figured out. But the truth is, I have been miserable. I have been sleepwalking through my own life, going through the motions while my soul slowly died." The room had gone completely silent, people exchanging uncomfortable glances as they realized they were witnessing something very personal and very real. Kenneth reached for the microphone, but Emma stepped away from him. "I know this is not what you came here to hear," she said, looking around the room, "but I cannot pretend anymore. I cannot stand here and smile and act like everything is perfect when it is not. I deserve to be happy. I deserve to be with someone who sees me, really sees me, and loves me for who I am, not who they want me to be." Emma's eyes locked onto mine again, and I felt my heart stop. "I am in love with Scott Williams," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the silent room. "I am in love with a man who listens when I talk, who values my thoughts and dreams, who makes me feel alive for the first time in years. And I cannot pretend that is not true just to make everyone else comfortable." The microphone slipped from her hand and hit the floor with a dull thud. The room erupted in shocked whispers and gasps. Kenneth's face had gone white, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. And there I stood, frozen in the middle of it all, as 20 pairs of eyes turned to stare at me. Emma pushed through the crowd and grabbed my hand. "Come with me," she said urgently. "Please, Scott, just come with me." I let her pull me toward the front door, my mind reeling from what had just happened. Behind us, I could hear Kenneth shouting my name, his voice raw with betrayal and rage. We burst out of the house into the cool night air, Emma still gripping my hand like a lifeline. She was breathing hard, her chest rising and falling rapidly as the adrenaline of what she had just done hit her. "I just destroyed my entire life," she said, laughing shakily. "I just stood up in front of everyone and confessed my love for my husband's best friend." "Emma," I started, but she cut me off. "No," she said, "do not tell me I should not have done it. Do not tell me it was wrong or inappropriate or any of the things I already know." I could not stand there for one more second pretending to be happy in a life that was killing me slowly. The front door burst open behind us, and Kenneth came storming out, his face twisted with anger. "What the hell is going on?" he shouted. "Scott, you son of a bitch! What did you do to my wife?" I stepped protectively in front of Emma, my hands raised peacefully. "Kenneth, let me explain." "Explain what?" he spat. "How you seduced my wife, how you destroyed my marriage, how you betrayed 15 years of friendship." His words hit me like physical blows, each accusation landing with devastating accuracy. "You are right," I said quietly. "I betrayed you. I fell in love with Emma, and I should have stayed away." Kenneth looked like he wanted to hit me, his fists clenched at his sides. Emma stepped out from behind me, facing her husband with a courage I had never seen from her before. "This is not Scott's fault," she said firmly. "He never pursued me, never tried to break up our marriage. If anything, he tried to stay away because he knew it was wrong." "Then why?" Kenneth asked, his voice breaking. "Why would you do this to us, to our life together?" "Because we do not have a life together," Emma replied sadly. "We have a business arrangement. We have a beautiful house and successful careers and impressive social standing. But we do not have love. When is the last time you asked me what I wanted, what I dreamed about, what made me happy?" Kenneth stared at her, seemingly unable to process what she was saying. "I gave you everything," he said. "The house, the lifestyle, financial security. What more could you want? I wanted to be seen. Emma said, tears streaming down her face now. I wanted to matter to someone as more than an accessory to their success. I wanted to feel alive instead of like I was slowly disappearing. The fight went out of Kenneth then, his shoulders sagging as the reality of their broken marriage hit him. So this is it, he said flatly. 15 years down the drain for some fantasy romance? Emma shook her head. It is not a fantasy, Kenneth. So I thought, what Scott and I have is real. It is messy and complicated and probably doomed, but it is real in a way our marriage never was. Kenneth looked at me with such pain in his eyes that I wanted to take back everything that had happened. I trusted you, he said simply. You were my best friend, and I trusted you with everything. I know, I replied, my own voice thick with emotion. I am sorry, Kenneth. I never meant for any of this to happen. He laughed bitterly. But you are not sorry enough to walk away, are you? You are going to take my wife and destroy my life and sleep just fine at night. That is not fair, Emma interjected. You do not get to make Scott the villain here. Our marriage was broken long before he came into the picture. Kenneth ignored her. His attention focused entirely on me. Get out, he said coldly. Both of you. Get off my property and do not ever come back. Emma started to say something, but Kenneth held up his hand. We will deal with the divorce lawyers later. Right now, I just want you gone. Emma and I walked to my car in silence, the weight of what had just happened settling over us like a heavy blanket. I helped her into the passenger seat, then sat behind the wheel for a moment, trying to process the fact that my entire life had just changed irrevocably. Where do you want to go, Emma asked. Emma looked at me with exhausted eyes. I do not know, she said. I do not have anywhere to go. My whole life was tied up in that house, in that marriage. I reached over and took her hand. You can stay with me, I said, for as long as you need. We drove to my apartment in silence, both lost in our own thoughts. When we got inside, Emma collapsed onto my couch, finally allowing herself to fully break down. I held her while she cried, stroking her hair and murmuring reassurances that everything would be okay, even though I had no idea if that was true. What have we done? She whispered against my chest. We have destroyed so many lives for something that might not even work out. I pulled back to look at her face, cupping her cheek gently. We fell in love, I said. It was not planned or calculated or malicious. We just fell in love. But is love enough, she asked. Is it enough to justify all this pain and chaos? I do not know, I admitted, but I know I would rather face an uncertain future with you than a certain one without you. She smiled through her tears, the first real smile I had seen from her all evening. That was 6 months ago. Emma and I have been together ever since, navigating the complicated aftermath of that explosive night. The divorce was ugly and expensive, with Kenneth fighting her on everything out of spite and wounded pride. Most of our mutual friends chose sides, and we lost more than we kept. Emma had to find a new job when the gossip at her old company became unbearable. But through it all, we have had each other. We moved in together officially 3 months ago, combining our belongings and our lives in ways that feel both natural and miraculous. Emma has started painting again, transforming our spare bedroom into a bright studio filled with canvases and color. I have never seen her happier than when she is lost in her art, covered in paint and completely absorbed in creating something beautiful. We have had our challenges, of course. The guilt still hits us sometimes, usually in the quiet moments when we remember the cost of our happiness. Emma struggles with the loss of financial security and social standing. I miss Kenneth, despite everything, and grieve the friendship we destroyed. Some days we question whether we made the right choice, whether love really was worth all the pain we caused. But then Emma will laugh at something silly I said, or I will catch her humming while she cooks dinner, or we will have one of our long conversations that last until 3 in the morning. And I know we made the only choice we could. We chose authenticity over comfort, passion over security, love over fear. Kenneth and I have not spoken since that night. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he sold the house and moved to Seattle for a fresh start. I hope he finds happiness, real happiness, with someone who can love him the way he deserves. Emma and I both carry the weight of the hurt we caused him, but we have learned to live with it as the price of our freedom. Emma is 36 now, and I am 30. The age difference that once seemed significant has faded into irrelevance. We are planning a small wedding for next spring, just close family and the friends who stuck by us through everything. Nothing elaborate or showy, just a simple celebration of the love we fought so hard to claim. Looking back, I can see that everything led to this moment. The loneliness that made us both vulnerable to connection. The courage Emma found to speak her truth in front of a room full of people. The choice we made to fight for love even when it seemed impossible. If you are watching this and wondering whether love is worth the risk, whether it is ever too late to choose happiness over security, I want you to know that it is. Love does not follow social conventions or timelines or other people's expectations. Sometimes it arrives at the most inconvenient moment, in the most complicated circumstances, with the most impossible person. But when real love shows up, when someone sees you and values you and makes you feel alive in ways you had forgotten were possible, you have to be brave enough to reach for it, even if it means disappointing people, even if it means starting over, even if it means admitting you have been living the wrong life for years. Emma and I are proof that second chances exist, that it is never too late to choose authenticity over pretense, that love can bloom in the most unlikely places. We paid a high price for our happiness, but every morning I wake up next to her, I know it was worth it. So tell me in the comments, do you believe in fighting for love even when it is complicated? Have you ever had to choose between security and passion? I want to hear your stories, your thoughts, your own experiences with unexpected love. And if this story touched you, please like and subscribe for more real stories about the messy, beautiful, complicated nature of human connection. Remember, love has no expiration date, no perfect timing, no simple rules. Sometimes the greatest love stories begin with the most impossible circumstances. The question is not whether you deserve love, but whether you are brave enough to fight for it when it finds you. Emma and I are living proof that it is never too late to rewrite your story, to choose happiness over convention, to believe that love really can conquer all. Even when it costs everything, even when it changes everything, even when it scares you more than anything you have ever done. Love is always worth the risk.